Hi, this is Dave Nabity from Nabity Business Advisors. Today, I'm going to finish my entrepreneurial series on our last part where we talk about how important it is to keep your marriage in great shape while you're running a company. You're not going to want to miss this. Many of you who are running a business are married, and you've gone through all the challenges that it takes to try to keep a happy home and a successful business at the same time. Make no mistake about it, the most important partnership that you can have on the planet is your marriage. It's important to have mommies and daddies doing well together, having children, and having healthy homes. And if you allow your business to so dominate your life that it wrecks your marriage, you haven't succeeded at all. I don't care how strong your financial statement looks. So today I'm going to go through some very practical things for you to think about when you're running a business to make sure that your marriage stays intact. Now, we all know that running a company is really difficult sometimes. You can have the pressure of trying to survive financially. You can be trying to grow market share. You can have a terrible time finding the right people to do work for you. You can have competitive pressures. There can be all kinds of things coming at you. Plus, you might have tons of passion to grow and build your company and succeed for all sorts of reasons. Unfortunately, what a lot of entrepreneurs do is they put all of that in front of their families and put that in front of their spouses. And over time, it begins to create such a distance between mommy and daddy that the marriage doesn't do very well, and many times it can end in divorce and children's hearts wrecked because mommy and daddy didn't stay together. And a lot of times it can be all about that passion and desire that you have to succeed. Make no mistake about it, your marriage is absolutely the most important partnership that you can have on the planet. And I also want to say to you, I've made mistakes along the way. I've been in business over 35 years, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is a lot of stuff I've learned the hard way. And what I'm going to share with you is practical, and it's important. And if you follow the principles that I'm talking about, you should be able to maintain a happy home while you're climbing the ladder of business success. One of the big dangers of being an entrepreneur is that you spend so much time with the people at work that you get to a place where you get very close with your coworkers and you get very distant with the people at home. You can have the temptation to get your emotional support from the people at work because you're with them from 8 to 5, 8 to 6, and you begin to get to a point where you don't really rely on the emotional support of the people at home, nor do you invest in the emotions and the feelings and the love of the people that you have at home because you've poured so much in at work that by the time you get home, there's nothing left. Next thing you know, you might be going to the bar with your co-workers instead of going home on time. If you're taking company trips, there's partying and things that are going on with your co-workers, and you know as well as I do what that can lead to. Affairs with people at work. And you might think that you're insulated from it, but when you're working super hard and you've got pressure, and maybe the understanding and the love at home doesn't seem to be like what it used to be because you're not investing in it, but by golly, there's somebody at work that really thinks you're special and important, the temptation's going to be there. And you can't pick up the news. You can't see social media for more than a day without hearing about somebody having an affair with somebody or somebody's sexual life being put out there in public, being shamed because of the things that they were doing in secret end up being exposed. And affairs at work have become all too common because people put work ahead of family. What can come from that is complete destruction. If you blow up your marriage, you're going to blow up your family, especially if you have kids. And I don't care what anybody says about how resilient children are. If mommy and daddy split up, children's hearts are wrecked. Sometimes they don't recover. And you know, they might be able to carry on when they're young, but once they get to those teenage years, those rebellious years, you can plan on having lots of problems. whether it's drinking and partying and promiscuity and all those sorts of things, because the kids have pain that was created because mommy and daddy didn't keep the home together and demonstrate love between each other, all because you let things at work get out of hand. The other thing that I've noticed that really happens when you're running a business and you have a family is things at home can get super busy. And one spouse can be spending all the time running the kids to sporting events and dance events and school events while the other spouse is off working. And when you get off work, then you come together and you run to a kid event. And then, by the time you get everybody to bed, everybody's exhausted, and you just do that day in and day out. And just the whole lifestyle of what's going on between those working and those running the family can create all kinds of stress, all kinds of problems. That can lead to bitterness. Once the bitterness begins to start, guess what stops? Intimacy. Once the intimacy stops, then temptation increases at work, which could be a huge problem again, like we've talked about already. And as I've mentioned in my previous videos, we all have a spiritual enemy too. And what does that spiritual enemy want? What's the goal of that spiritual enemy? First of all, that spiritual enemy wants you to put money, position, wealth, and status above everything else, including God and your family. That spiritual enemy wants you addicted to something, whether it's alcohol, drugs, pot, you name it. That spiritual enemy wants your ego so puffed up that you lose your ability to love and care for those that are around you. That spiritual enemy wants you wrapped up in lust and wants you so driven that you're willing to break the bonds between husbands and wives and create all sorts of collateral damage with your family and co-workers and all that because you can't control your lusts. That's what our spiritual enemy wants, right? So that spiritual enemy is going to set you up for that if you're an entrepreneur. He's also going to want you in the pressure cooker. If you have all that going on and then your schedule is going one direction and your wife's schedule is going in another direction, it sets the perfect stage for a marriage to be destroyed. And we don't want to have that happen. Again, your marriage is the most important partnership you have on the planet. And there is no amount of business success, there's no financial statement, there's no position in life that's more important than keeping your family together and having a loving, intimate relationship with your spouse. Okay, so having said all that, let's get to some practical steps. When a husband and a wife are working as a team, something magical happens. One of the best ways to get on the right track is to partner with the church home. Find a good church that has good couples groups where you've got small groups where you not only go to maybe a Sunday service, but you also have other couples around you that can build you up and pray for you and help you grow personally, especially in your faith walk. If you get your faith walk in the right place, God has a way of really doing miraculous things in your business. I also feel like it's really important that you find time to communicate with each other. At the end of the day, just take 30 minutes and sit in a chair and look at each other, get that hot cup of decaf tea or decaf coffee, and sit and have a conversation and share with each other, heart to heart, what's gone on during the day, what the needs were of each other, what's going on with the kids, what's going on at work, and build that ability to just sit and talk and communicate about what's going on, and make the effort to show that you really care for the heart of your spouse on both sides. And you might think, well, geez, I'm in a different world than my spouse. My spouse is off doing this and I'm off doing that, and I don't know, there's just no way that they could even understand what I'm going through. That's not the point. The point is showing kindness and love and respect for each other and sitting and listening and visiting and caring for each other's heart. If what's going on in work is way over your spouse's head, so what? Take the time to communicate what's going on. And maybe there's nothing more that your spouse could do than just to pray for you and say, honey, look, before we go to bed, let's give this to God. I'm going to pray over you and ask the Lord to do something good tomorrow for you. It's a great way to end the evening. One of the things I really like to see happen is if there's something really important going on at the office, there's an important meeting, there's an important event, invite your spouse into it. Let the rest of the team know how important your spouse is to you and get them involved. They don't have to make decisions. They don't have to get in the middle of anything. They don't have to confront anybody or speak on your behalf. Just have them come and be a part of what you're doing at the office. I think that's important too, because if there's somebody at the office that thinks you're pretty hot and they're thinking in the back of their mind, oh, maybe someday wouldn't it be great to be with my boss, or maybe things at their home aren't so good. If they see that you love your spouse and your spouse is an active part of what's going on in the company, they'll think twice about trying to do something that both of you would regret later on. I also think it's very important to create boundaries. Now, what do I mean by boundaries? There's a certain amount of energy and time that you have for every day. And at some point in time, the more time that you spend, the less effective you're going to be if your energy is shot, but you're pushing. And I feel like, you have to develop boundaries. I was really bad at this when I was early on in my career, where I'd get up at 7 and sometimes I wouldn't get home till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I really did hurt my wife's heart, because she was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and she felt abandoned a lot of time. She never did let me know how much I was hurting her, because she wanted to be tough. She wanted to put on the good face. She wanted to not be a problem for me, because I was out trying to make money and provide for this family. And I worked in a panic mode more often than I should have, and I should have done a better job of creating boundaries. So, what do I mean? Setting a schedule that during the week, these are the hours that you're going to work, and these are the hours that you're going to be off, and you're not going to blur those lines. So your spouse knows that you're going to be home at such and such time, and you're not bringing work home with you. You've left it at the office, and you're home to be that husband or wife, and you're home to be that father or that mother, and business is not going to consume what you have going on in the evening. That's really important. That says a lot to the people that you have around you, that they're important and that you love them, and that you're putting the business pressures aside because you want to invest in their hearts. Really important. Get a schedule, block it out, put in the boundaries, and talk to your spouse about what would be the ideal calendar each week to have in order to make sure that you're investing in the family the way you need to. That's really important. Like I said, I stunk at it early on. I'm a lot better at it today. One thing I do want to mention, I know this sounds kind of crazy on a business tape, but take time to be romantic. One of the things that I see happen with marriage is that there's all sorts of excuses of why everybody's so tired that they don't bother to spend the time to be romantic with their spouse. And marriages cannot sustain a relationship where there isn't romance. Over time, the bitterness, the anger, the frustration, the rejection, all that stuff will lead to big problems down the road. And it's interestingly enough that, when I work with young couples that are having marriage trouble, one of the first things I notice is the intimacy has stopped a long time ago, and that's led to a chain reaction. And one spouse has an excuse to not be intimate. And sometimes it's the woman, sometimes it's the man, but they get bitter about something, or they get prideful about something and decide, you know what, I don't need to do that anymore. And they end up wrecking the heart of the other spouse, and it's a setup to blow up a marriage. And so my point is, I don't care how busy you are, I don't care how tired you are, take the time to be romantic with your spouse. Dinner, movies, whatever it takes to make your spouse feel like she or he is loved and respected and cared for and attractive and needed. Really, really important. No matter how tough things are at work, you can't sacrifice that. Now let me talk about another set of boundaries. Now I know I'm going to sound like Vice President Pence here, but when I was a young man, I had a pastor that his name was Elmer Murdoch. He ran a church called Trinity Interdenominational Church, and he said this to me and the church. I must have been 20, 22 years old. It was a fundamental that he followed. It was a fundamental that Billy Graham followed, and it's a fundamental that Mike Pence follows today. And here it is. You have to keep your distance from somebody of the opposite sex. Now, of course, you're going to have employees that are going to be from the opposite sex. And yes, you're going to have meetings. But here's the deal. Here's the fundamentals. No closed-door meetings with somebody of the opposite sex. Nobody knows what's going on behind those closed doors. If you have to have somebody that's from the opposite sex and you got to have a meeting, bring them into the office, but keep the door open. One of the other things that we have in our offices is we've got glass windows on all the doors, so everybody can see what's going on inside the office, and that was by design. You don't want to travel alone with someone of the opposite sex. It sounds crazy, but it is a strong fundamental. When you're alone in a car traveling with someone from the opposite sex, it gives you the opportunity to have more intimate conversations and get to know each other and become more and more familiar with each other. And it's one thing if you're going to maybe, run 2 blocks away to go to a meeting or something, but if you're going to do an hour trip or you're going to travel somewhere where you have time alone to converse with each other, you don't want to do it. When it comes to conferences, you definitely don't want to travel alone with someone of the opposite sex. If there's a trade show going on or a conference going on, you fly on separate planes. If you can, don't even stay in the same hotel. But you definitely don't put yourself in a position where you are one-on-one with someone from the opposite sex at any conference, any hotel, any place where things could get intimate, or you could be accused of doing something that you shouldn't have done, and there's nobody else to argue in your defense. The last thing that I want to talk about here on this subject is to refrain from intimate conversations with people at work. I don't care how bad things are going on at home. I don't care what kind of rejection you're getting at home. Do not confide with anybody at work about what's going on with your marriage or what's going on with your relationship with your spouse or intimacy or any of that kind of stuff, especially anything of a sexual nature. Even if the other people around the office think it's playful and funny, you don't. You need to set the example. You need to be the leader. Okay, to wind things up here, I'm convinced that if you take this kind of approach with regard to your marriage and your business, special things will begin to happen. God will begin to open up doors for you that you didn't realize would get open. God will bring employees and new business to you that you couldn't imagine that you were going to get to help you fulfill your destiny and your purpose for your company and for your family. Your financial future will come together in ways that you can't imagine. And lastly, guess what? You'll be viewed in the marketplace as a solid, competent family business person, and that will gain you respect in the marketplace. And you know what? You'll be able to have influence that you couldn't imagine you would have if you follow these principles. So those are my thoughts about business and marriage. I hope you found this entrepreneurial series helpful. Feel free to email it to people and share it wherever you want to share it. And you know what? If you need any help working through any of these issues that we've talked about, feel free to give me a call. The number's on the screen and my email is there as well. We're passionate about helping family businesses succeed and thrive, and I love working with the entrepreneurs, helping them grow and expand and do well in business. So I'd love to work with you if you need any of my coaching or guidance or help. So with that, have a great day and hope to see you soon.